I'm a huge fan of Bioshock, so when a buddy told me about Bioshock with robots, I had to pick it up. I thought it just might scratch the itch, and for a moment, it did. How's it going? It's Hesh from No Frills. Today I'm checking out Atomic Heart, a first-person shooter set in an alternate dystopian reality where the Soviet Union has been taken over by robots. Sounds pretty cool, but it's not quite the sum of its parts. Let's get into it. Atomic Heart seems to lean quite heavily on its inspirations. I'm getting hints of Bioshock here, Far Cry there, a little bit of Dead Island sameness over here. It's not all bad though were it to come together cohesively. Sadly, it just doesn't quite hit the mark for me. The opening scene was awesome. It really set what I'd hoped would be the tone for the rest of the game. The graphics are great, the art design and direction are really believable. It looks and feels alive, despite all the robots everywhere. One thing that stood out and I thought was really neat was the tooltips that pop up when you mouse over all the posters and all the signage that's in another language. That's pretty awesome. It'd be cool to see that in more games. The overall setting is great, although not that original. You know, you've got this dystopian reality, robots and AI pretty much taking over as your caretakers, performing everyday tasks, all the general labor, etc., all that garbage. Of course, there's gonna be some crazy dude that flips the kill everyone switch and boom, bots set to their task, destroy everything. This is where you come in. You're the hero who fights through the robots, solving puzzles and unraveling the story on your quest to save the day. Well, something like that. The dialogue is mostly forgettable and easily ignored for the most part until you can't. There's a few sequences where I found myself stuck hopping around the inside of an elevator while a little bit of the story played out. You can skip the dialogue. The problem is, you'd miss some key elements of the story if you did, so dance for me. The game is fun, but it's a bit of a mess. It was kind of equal parts fun and frustration. It seems a little half-baked and definitely padded for playtime. Even though the graphics are great and they tease this full, rich world ripe for exploration, they throw you in a box for half the game and, well, that's not cool at all. Why am I climbing through ventilation shafts? There's a mountain out there. After catching a glimpse of the world in the intro, the very last thing I wanted to do was be crawling around picking locks. Although you spend far too much time indoors, you will get to run around outside, although the areas are sandbox and surprisingly small. Your movement's decent enough, you've got a jump and a dash, but that's really about it. You can mantle and climb, it's a bit awkward and quite inconsistent, and this is where the game really started to fall apart for me. While I can deal with the lack of a sprint, you can upgrade your movement speed. One thing I can't deal with are anemic jumps and dashes. The jump is more of a hop, and the dash is just a straight up joke. Gets you like 2 meters of distance, practically useless. You will depend on it in combat though. Speaking of combat, the fights are fun, albeit a little bit repetitive. They're fairly standard, like hit, dodge, hit for your melee. And you can just circle strafe your way through most of the ranged encounters, although not all. These bots are fast, and they will kick the crap out of you. I really love how fast, snappy, and downright inhuman these bots are. They are downright relentless. When they're tracking you, that is. I came across quite a few that just stood there as I beat the crap out of them, while others would attack me from behind so fiercely I had no idea what was happening. This happened a lot when I would miss a dodge and get knocked down. I would immediately be set upon from behind, and in the middle of the animation sometimes. This effectively stun locks you, or worse, punches you into the geometry so you can't move. Not fun. At one point during a QuickTime event, the bot choked me so hard the screen went black, but the sound continued for about 2 minutes. That's not intentional at all, and if it was, why did it crash my game? When it comes to weapons, there's a fairly decent variety that you can unlock by obtaining blueprints, and each one of these can be upgraded by spending some of the random resources that you'll be collecting at one of these upgrade stations. Nothing too far out, but they're fun to play with. There are a ton of resources to collect scattered around the level, and the mechanic for doing so is pretty awesome, but the novelty wears off quite quickly. If Sexual Harassment Panda were a robot, Nora would be it. This insane and overly suggestive machine is where you'll go to do all your upgrades, both for your weapons and your characters. This is also where you'll be crafting new items out of all the junk you've collected. The upgrade and crafting systems themselves are pretty basic. You just collect junk, and if you've got enough, you can make the thing. That's pretty much all there is to it, which is fine for a game like this. I really don't expect anything else. I really wish I had the footage for all of them, but I encountered a surprising number of bugs and glitches in Atomic Heart. For a game as solid as this is, when it is, it really shouldn't suffer from some of the issues that I experienced. The combat, while it can be fun, was a little infrequent, and more often than not, I'd get pushed into or jump dash into a position which I couldn't recover from quickly, if at all. Pair this with enemies that just spawn right behind you, attack you on sight regardless of your current state, you're gonna have a bad time. I was not a fan of the pacing of the game. I would say it flat out sucks. I don't think many people care for the long elevator rides that games use to fill in story elements. Now, it's one thing if you're gonna pop some dialogue off while an area is loading in an elevator. It's another to hold a player hostage in an elevator while you yak on and on about a story that by this point, nobody really cares about. Now, it's not a bad story, just told in a really awkward way. It really feels like they padded this game for time a lot, and it's not just the elevator rides. Now, doors have locks, but holy crap, the number of lock puzzles in this game is beyond ridiculous. Add a bunch of little laser locks and fetch quests and some very janky platforming, you're going to spend a lot of time repetitively doing nothing of substance. When it comes to boss fights, these are pretty cool, but the spectacle wears off pretty quickly. In one encounter, I was fighting a boss that was resistant to melee, ran out of ammo, and there was none to be had while I was locked in an arena. That sucked. Had I had even an inkling that there was a boss fight coming, I would have prepared ahead of time. I had all the materials to do so. Atomic Heart isn't a bad game. It's just not great, and it could have been. It plays like a really good proof of concept that was padded out for time to make a game. I really wish they would have condensed things a little bit, kept the majority of the gameplay outdoors, and spent some more time playtesting on this one. I may be wrong here, but I think there were some issues here that were simply overlooked during testing or swept along when it came time to ship. I really wanted to explore this world, but it's not quite there, and I found that disappointing, but that's on me. I expected something a bit different than was on offer here. As to what was provided, I did have fun with Atomic Heart, and I would pick it up again at a discount. Perhaps we'll see another entry in this series. I dig the concept for sure. Hopefully they'll bring it to form and it'll earn a place in my library. That about does it for this one. It's fun in small doses. Once again, thanks for hanging out with me, and as always, I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next one. How's it going? It's Hesh. If you liked what you saw even a tiny bit, do me a favor, shoot me a like and a sub, and if you're feeling awfully generous, give me a share, man. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.